Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the main event of the evening. 60 minutes of football fun and banter with Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV. Are you ready? Let's get ready to rumble.
Strap yourself in, because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform or ask your smart speaker to play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Subscribe, like, follow and join in now.
This is your host, Chris.
No! God, please, no! No!
I know, I'm sorry, but he's cheap and available.
How rude.
Right, Chris.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlefolk. How the devil are we all? Hope you've had a good day. I've got to be honest with you. I have had a very, very stressful day. I was buying a new iPod earlier in the Apple shop, and I saw this guy running, and he picked up 3 or 4 display items and ran out. And I was about to leave the shop, and the assistant came up to me and goes, "I'm going to have to keep hold of you, mate. You're an eyewitness." Can I just say I peak early? I really do. In the weekend, it is the second East Midlands derby. Things can only get better, as Dean once said. The second East Midlands derby is this weekend. It's kind of 1-1 at the moment because, of course, they did to us in the FA Cup last year. We did to them in the league game. How are we feeling about this one? That is the question. Also, the weekend that Nicolas Gonzalez could possibly be putting pen to paper. And if you do Google him, by the way, it is the Argentinian one and not the Spanish one of the same name. Not in the starting lineup against whoever they were playing the other day. Fiorentina had put him on the bench. Pratt could be coming back into the starting lineup straight away tomorrow. Look, whatever you want to talk about, this is your show. You decide the topics. We'll get it kicking off with the first topic, and then we'll bring whatever you want to talk about in the chat. Please keep us going. Give us some ideas, some topics, and we will discuss those for you. Look, let me get me 2 guests in here on Question Time tonight. First of all, let's bring Dave in, the man that is to Question Time. I guess that's the first question. What is it to Question Time? Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks, mate. I have no idea is the answer to your question. Friday night.
I'm still trying to work it out.
Must be getting old when I come on your show at 9 o'clock on a Friday night. I'll tell you that.
Well, if you've got a club to go to or a party to host or grab a granny night somewhere, then
I've got one of those.
We will finish early for you. We'll finish early, but welcome along. And he wasn't here last week. He was off doing God knows what. He couldn't be bothered to come, but he's back. He's back. And, of course, it is Brad, and he is the man so apt for this show. He is the man who has all the questions. Unfortunately, he doesn't always have all the answers. Brad, good evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I must have been playing my own version of Mock the Week. If this is the answer, what is the question? I just got it wrong in my head while I did it that day.
Don't worry, he says, Chris, I'll do the questions for you. You know, it's the second round of the quiz. I don't know what questions you've asked. I'll come up with some new questions. Don't you worry. Yeah. Next time, just check the answers as well, Brad.
You
Can't believe I didn't write it down. I was purely blessed, though, Dave. I was purely blessed on the fact. I was blessed on the fact that with my quiz, I had exact information I could use for the exact question. So all I had to do was change the year. I still had an answer for it. It's the only thing that saved me from complete embarrassment when it came to that question. Realised I hadn't put the answer down.
I have got some clipping to do later on tonight.
He does. He does.
Spencer is in. Good evening, sir. How the devil are you? Welcome along. Any questions you want to discuss, please stick them in the chat and we will attempt to get around to it. Obviously, as long as they're clean and legal. Has anybody watched the Rooney versus Vardy? I don't know if I asked you this last week at all. No.
I don't watch
stuff like that. Here, don't.
No.
It's absolutely shite.
It's like watching the Harry and Meghan thing, isn't it?
Well, yes. You missed me. I had my Harry and Meghan wedding T-shirt on display yesterday for 2 shows.
How was that for you? That was a Christmas present, wasn't it?
It was. It's okay. I have got my own back. It was my future daughter-in-law that decided it would be funny to buy me that. I have got my own back with her, although she refuses to wear it at the moment. I don't know why, because the Prince Andrew mask looked really good on her. The only problem I had, and maybe I didn't think it through properly, because the only problem I had is the fact I forgot she's a school teacher. So maybe that might not have been the best idea. But I did say to her, right, this is war now. This is war. But anyway, let's get up and running. Let's get ready to rumble. I'm sure the jokes will get worse as we go through the night.
Can't get any worse than that first one.
You loved it. Question time. Like I say, the show where you do set the agenda, guys. So I said, please do stick some topics in the in the chat. I want to start off with tonight's top topic. We always ourselves with, should Rodgers be sacked if we lose to Nottingham Forest? I mean, we've been there once before, guys. We saw what a debacle it was in the FA Cup last year. We kind of were on a bit of a running streak up until the World Cup, but then, and in no disrespect to those teams, they were all bottom half teams. Since we've come back, he has not won a game. He'd lost 3 out of 3 league games, and we managed to scrape past a League Two side in the FA Cup. For me, I'm prepared to let Newcastle go because Newcastle on a run at the moment, and they're a top 3 side. Although I said the Carling Cup was no better, in fairness. Liverpool, we know what happened at Liverpool. But how much longer can we keep saying that it was a bad day at the office? Fulham, well, everybody's saying to me, Fulham, we played better in the second half. It's a 90-minute game. Dave, let's come to you first. Should he go if we don't beat Forest?
You asked me this last week about Gillingham.
I know, and I'm going to keep asking you until he goes.
My answer was yes, but the real answer was no chance he won't go. I mean, I don't agree with you about the which game was it? You said I can't remember now. Liverpool
with the 2 own goals,
yeah. But even so, we should have done better than that.
Yeah.
Fulham was appalling. Newcastle was the other one you said about. They're on a run. We were dreadful. I didn't think we looked as if we were interested in that game. I mean, I could be wrong, but to me, I noticed players strolling back when they lost the ball up front. I didn't notice anybody really getting in there. I forget the Vardy chance. I mean, that seems to be becoming regular, unfortunately, now. But I didn't notice any passion there. And I reckon that comes from the top. So my answer is he should go. And I've said this for a long time now. I hate to say it. I hate it. But I've had enough now, mate. I really have. You know, when we're not showing passion, we used to show more passion when we were playing Premier League teams in League One, and you know we got at them. That's how Leicester did it in the FA Cup. Now we're just not interested in. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I've seen so many conflicting reports about so and so. Danny Ward had a nightmare. I thought Danny Ward did all right at Newcastle. I always think he does all right up to a point, but I think the rest of them didn't show any bottle at all.
Brad?
Even Vardy.
No, you don't get inspired looking at Brendan Rodgers on the touchline, do you?
No, you don't. And you know, not every manager has to be. You don't have to be eccentric on the touchline. Look, it works. I think you have to have a certain personality. And Brendan, to be fair to him, has made no traits that he doesn't want. He wants to be very monotone, so nobody can read into it. For the press conferences, but he did used to show hints of passion, didn't he, in his early days at the club. So the biggest difference between Leicester now and Leicester when they went on a slump during the other two, like few seasons he's been at the club, is I don't know if maybe the kind of underplaying the success that they made, because it feels like this is the effect of 2 years of just undermining what they've achieved. Oh, well, we're not good enough to compete with these. Every week we're always hearing either we're not good enough to compete or you know, we have to put in a lot of effort just to compete with them to get a result. That's the same sort of thing you get the feel with them. He's either surprised the fact that they've managed to get a result against like a Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham every season, or he's going, well, that's because we're not good enough to compete. The whole squad's not good enough. And you look at what they've achieved, and he's downplayed it and underplayed it so much. I think it's got to the point where it's just irreparable, because then players used to pick themselves up. You saw Vardy and the Madison cheering it. Do you know what? I see us concede a goal, and I know you said it, Chris, and it's very true that when we score, when we concede, that's it. Because I don't see a single shoulder risen. I see every shoulder slumped. I see every player, like you said, stood still, strolling back, almost like they've got 10-ton weights on their feet. They stroll the ball back to go, oh, here we go again. And when that happens, we see the disasters. It's something that has to change. And I don't even think it'd matter if we get these two signings through the door. I don't think it. I think if it was needed, we lost this game to Forest, and heavily. I'm not saying a 1-0 defeat wouldn't do it, but if it was a heavy defeat, I don't think Brendan's got a leg to stand on to kind of say, give me more time.
No, and I think, Dave, you know, this was the game that really started the rot, if you like. With the FA Cup last season, it was around this time as well. You know, I mean, it means a hell of a lot. Now, if these players don't know that, then it's down to Brendan to drill it into them what it means. But there are enough players that have been around Leicester long enough to be able to G everybody up.
Do you remember Bournemouth losing at Liverpool? Was it 9?
Yeah.
Scotty Parker came out and said, you know, we ain't got the money to compete. We can't do it. He got sacked the next day.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers has been putting this on the board for months. Ever since the summer.
Andrew says there, though, Dave, if it wasn't for the... he added here. Sorry, this was on. Top is too soft. Chai would have swung the axe. But apparently it was Top that wanted to get rid of Nigel Pearson that time. And it was Vichai that said, no, we stick with him.
It's easy to do that when it's not your decision, isn't it? It's like Labour Party now. They can make all the decisions in the world, but they don't have to implement them. And the Tories will be the same in the next round.
Yes,
It's dead easy when you're not in charge.
Yeah, but Brad, I mean, we're on about all this compensation money that we would owe him. It would cost a hell of a lot more if we get relegated, and it is a responsibility.
Yeah, and look, I'm not saying anybody's saying anything disrespectful about top at all, but I don't get where this top's gone soft sort of thing. I think people need to just remind themselves, and I'm not saying this is an excuse. I think you've got to remember where top's just come from in the last 4 years at this club. He's lost a father who he was learning from, and people need to not get it twisted when I say he's still young. I don't mean that he's a young man. I know he's in his 30s, mid-30s. He's probably slightly older than myself.
He's young enough, too young to run a football club, isn't he? Really?
Exactly. That's exactly the point. He's still in the infancy of running a business, and he's not just running a business. When it was sunshine and roses, Rogers got away with saying that we were overachieving, that we were hitting above our weight, because it was all great when sunshine and fucking roses, mate. But when his business is failing, and his dad built up from the bottom. We're not failing, but they're losing money and they're trying to make a rebound in financial status. That was a wrong take me with a pinch of salt with my wording. But you know what I mean? And when the football club starts not doing well and he's got to stand by his man and he's got to go, no, the plan my father was designing was to make this city great. And I'm going to do that with the infrastructure first, and then I'm going to do the club. If I can balance, I'm pretty sure if push came to shove and he thought, you know what, I've backed you, I've supported you, I've had patience with you, but we're 16th with whether it's 8 games to go, 16 games to go, or whatever. He goes, I've had enough of you. He'll pay the compensation because of what you just said to us. They cannot afford, as I take it on a business perspective, they cannot afford to lose 100 odd million. Nobody in the right mind could, and we've got to realise he's not soft. This has been chucked at him in 4 years, and I would love anybody to try and be in his position and do it the way he's doing it. I think we've got to nip that in the bud before it gets a little bit sour, and it's something that should never happen with our owners at this current moment, because they're looking after this club as best they can.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one for people to understand. You know, you don't only lose your father, but you lose the head of a massive business from a massive country. I mean, he was next to the king in Thailand. You know, it's not just a person who ran a company, and all that's gone, and suddenly he's now got to run a football club.
Yeah, and he's got to uphold what his father did as well, hasn't he? And his family's.
Yeah, I mean, it's just impossible. But but you're right, Brad. He will get rid of him. He's been very loyal, rightly so, maybe. Who knows? But the time will come when he says, I've had enough of this now.
I think as well, yeah. I mean, you know, I think he's been loyal because he felt he necessarily let Brendan Rodgers down, but wasn't able to support him in the way that, and I know it gets ridiculous that, oh God, we've got a problem, let's buy a player, or we've got a problem, let's buy a player. But that's what everybody else is buying, and we have to buy to keep up, and he wasn't able to do that. Now, let's be honest with you, we don't give two flying fucks now whether we break FFP in Europe, because we're not in Europe. But at the time, he was doing what he felt was right.
Chris, we've never bought players without selling an Harry Maguire or Wesley Fofana. We've never done that, have we? We've always sold a player. Now, Fofana went, fine. But, you know, we can't just buy players, you know, without knowing what the hell they are. And we haven't got a recruitment campaign anymore. We haven't had that for 2 or 3 years now. Yeah, I agree with that. James just said, team that tries. Because I think against Newcastle, we didn't try.
I mean, Brad, Spencer says there, where's all this money come from? Let's see what we actually end up paying. It's all paper talk at the moment. And we're going to talk about Gonzalez, I'm sure later. Yeah. But we're 13th at the moment. We are literally 2 points off the bottom 3. We're where we are because of every time we've lost, all the teams underneath us have lost. We weren't a lot better off. In fact, we were better. We were worse off under Rodgers when we were bottom of the league than we were when Ranieri got sacked.
Yeah, but it's always this is the one thing that's very tricky to do, and it's to try and compare what happened before to the present day. And I like the similarities to help the comparison. It does make for it, but you've got to also remember, you could say, yeah, yeah, we're probably worse off than we were in terms of form and that. But you could then argue that Brendan, whilst that was the case, Ranieri had no injuries to worry about. No, Ranieri didn't have players that had 6 months left on the contract or coming up to 12 months left on the contract. He doesn't have a squad in a mental state. They just won the flipping Premiership. They should have been flying high and ready to go. Something dramatically affected that. Now, I'm not saying that something hasn't gone on here to change it, and it could still be Rodgers. I'm not saying it's not, but what I'm saying is it's two completely different circumstances. And whilst I don't excuse the form, because I still think the squad depth is decent enough to do better, the argument's just, it's two different scenarios.
Yeah, it is. And I do take your point. And thank you so much for that, Marcus. Welcome to the chat. I hope you are well. Do appreciate that, mate. Really do. Yes, he's got the injuries, Dave, but how much of the injuries is down to him? He's the manager, and he's the one that sets the training. Fofana, love him or hate him, Brad, and you know my feelings on him. But as soon as he came to Leicester, he commented on how intense the training was. And I think was it yourself, Brad, or Dave? Maybe I said that Rob Tanner says at the new training ground they have groundsmen that have some pitches that are hard because Vardy likes to run on a hard pitch, some pitches that are soft so that Johnny Evans doesn't, aggravate his injury again. I mean, bloody hell, it's like as we put a load of racehorses out. I mean, we've got a player somebody that runs onto the pitch before kickoff and feels the pitch and goes, right, this is the team you've got to pick. I mean, what is happening?
God, I wish I knew that.
Yeah, $6 million questions, they say.
I think, Brendan, from what I've heard and listened to over the years, Brendan Rodgers likes his players to train like they play. A lot of managers do that. Wenger, I think, did that, and he suffered as well. Some managers, like Brian Clough, I know it's the old days, but used to give them a day or two off in the week or maybe more. I think if you overtrain players, you're going to pay the price because they're not machines, they're humans. And if you start going in on heavy tackles, someone's going to get hurt. Now, coming on and warming up on the pitch, it's not that intense, is it? I mean, you've seen it before the game. They're not doing anything. Really, it's just like a warm-up for a training session. But there's something not right about it. I mean, we said when David Rennie left, that's when the problem started. I don't know whether it's true, but, it's...
I would argue the problems were there beforehand, and that's why he was apparently...
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But something's wrong somewhere, because to have that many injuries all of a sudden, is rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah,
but it's a great reason for Brendan Rodgers to blame everybody else again and not himself.
I mean, let's just have a look at this, Brad. I know you're not a lover of stats, but our current form, we're actually below Nottingham Forest. In the since they came back from the World Cup, they've had the royal flush, lost, drawn, and won, and we've sort of lost, and lost. I mean, I would never want to sort of play double poker with Brendan, but I can remember when Brendan came in that we were fed up with the way Puel was playing, and Brendan came in and suddenly he got Vardy back involved, and we were fast and attacking, and yet we're now, it's like Puel Mark II.
Yeah, it is. But I've said this a number of times on the Parish matches, more during this season probably than any. It's just, unfortunately, it's how managers go about things. They're happy. It's easy to fix that. When we're so bad like we were under Puel, it's easy to fix it. You just change the tempo up. You give the players a bit more freedom. You maybe change some things in your training regime. You maybe change things in maybe some silly rules that the managers implied they get rid of. You change the atmosphere, and all of a sudden you've got a bunch of lads that want to work for you as well as each other out there on the pitch. But eventually your own methods and ways always creep in and sneak in. It's just we just look at a team that's trying to play a way that isn't our style, which is pass it into the net, and you can just see that it just does not suit.
Against Newcastle, though, we didn't want to be there. We thought, well, we've got to play the game.
No, because we'll
take the journey up.
Yeah, because and I made this comparison. I tongue in cheek put it out as a tweet for those that watch any England cricket. They've got like this crazy quote baseball, which is where the England players just go out and slog it, and make for fun cricket. Try and make it more interesting. I know it's a boring sport.
25 minutes, Brad. 25 minutes did you get a cricket reference in?
I know, right? I'm getting it in quicker each week. It's great. No, but the thing is, they have this basic, simple, and so simple philosophy, but it's clearly working with their turnaround in form for anyone that knows it in depth. I think they've lost 1 out of 9 tests or something ridiculous and anything. Anyway, it's they just have they take away that fear of failure. They tell their number 11 batsman, if we need 80 runs, go out there and try and swing it if you think you can. And we've lost that fear factor that we had where we would play a ball and Barnes wouldn't even think about shooting. He'd go, I can score from it, and he'd curl it in the top corner. Tillerman's man short there to the point every single player had it, and he's just taking it out of them by changing that style to being so cautious. And again, I think in 2 years of constantly bashing the achievements of these players and underhanding it has led to where we are right now under him.
And Brighton's created more chances for Vardy than anybody has all season. And he's only played 3 games. Last 3.
He made such a difference when he came on against Fulham. And it is weird how we see games, because I thought Brunt had a fantastic game, but I wasn't at the match, and Craig was at the match. Didn't think he had a good game. But a few months ago, and even back into last season, when we were talking about Brendan, Ant, who comes on regularly from Ant's fan channel and Beyond the 90, was saying about Sean Dyche. Now, love him or hate him, I always went like, oh God, not Sean Dyche. But I've listened to Sean Dyche, and what he said is, and it really is true, is I played to the style that my players could play to. I could not go out and buy what Man City, and I couldn't buy the flair players. So I could not play that way. So should Brendan not be looking at it and say, yeah, I've got all these injuries. So instead of getting the players that haven't normally been playing on, don't play that way, and then adapting to their style, surely that's what he should be doing.
Well, you'd think. But I couldn't see where half the players were supposed to be playing in the last few games. I mean, I don't know what their role is. Iniacho, we were supposed to be playing 2 up front. He didn't. He played in midfield or defensive midfield. He hardly got up front. And I know he likes collecting the ball and he's good at that and laying it off, but he's supposed to be a striker. They're supposed to have 2 strikers up there. It didn't happen. So what's the point in playing him there? Is that what he's been told to do, or is that the way he's naturally... I mean, he's not. He's a striker. He's naturally up front scoring goals.
Yeah.
So something's wrong with the way they're told to play.
I think so. Brad, David says this. Take off your Leicester hat. Why do you think we pass so terribly to one another, even when that player is open? Some passes are so abominable. I find it hard to blame that on Brendan and not the player. Let me just say, and then I'll pass it over to you, Brad. For me, Brendan's the manager. The buck stops with him. If his players are not doing what they should be doing, he should be sorting it out. I have said this. I have seen under 10-year-olds teams passing better than Leicester have been passing. We're passing it to players who are marked. That's if we can get the ball to them at all. So, yes, it is the manager's fault, because he should be doing one of 2 things. He should be saying, God, we're shit at passing. We're going to do some simple passing training this week. And B, if somebody's not passing the ball, yank them off and put somebody on who can pass the bloody ball. He is the manager. It sticks with him and not the player.
Yeah, I'm actually in agreement. I know, shock horror, but I'm in agreement with you because and I said it about Vardy, I think, when I came on and had my little tangent at the start of the press conference, when we did our post-match. And I said, Vardy doesn't become a bad player overnight. Yes, he's lost his golden Midas touch, if you will, and that's fine. We knew that was coming anyway. He's lost some natural pace and ability, that's no doubt, but there is confidence missing. You don't become a bad player overnight, and I guarantee you, the only reason I bring Sean Dyche in, though, Chris, is because I think he would be a stopgap manager. I don't think he'd be someone.
What I'm saying is that philosophy of I play to my players' strengths.
No, yeah, and I think that's the direction they'd probably go in if it got to that stage. But to say you can't blame Brendan for it, who decides how they train? And I know on a level of effort, that's the players, but who decides what drills are going to run? Who decides what they want to work on? Who decides the match preparation? It's Brendan and his staff. So let's not put all the blame on Brendan. His staff take that blame for that because they come up with some ideas that might not be.
He's in charge of the staff.
Yeah, yes. But what I'm saying is that again, that kind of then brings it full circle back to Brendan, why he takes the majority of the blame. But he takes their advice and trusts them with the advice they give him, with the ideas they come up with to try and put into practice. I think the best way to look at it is the reason the passes look so lazy or look so off at times is because the players are confused. That lack of communication, I rarely hear shouts unless it's the opposition. Not just the crowd noise, because it's hard to hear, but I don't really hear our players shouting too much. And only when it gets like 3-0 down in the games, which we've become accustomed to sadly this season, do we hear Brendan pipe up? But, them passes are so miscommunicational that I don't think the players understand what they're going out there to do with the instructions. As you've mentioned it time and time again, Chris, are similar to how it went wrong for Ranieri. He kept confusing the players with am I supposed to go now or are we still defensive? I can't remember. There's so many parts of this game. He's making it into a Shakespeare play, I feel. He's trying to command everything into a Shakespeare act, and it's not working.
I think, I've been a manager in sales, and I take I take the blame if things go wrong on my team, because I can't just go in there and say, well, actually, this happened because it was his fault. Well, what have you done about it? Well, it was his fault. Well, you're paid extra to manage him. If it's not going right, move him, put him onto something else, move something around, do something. I'm afraid that's why he gets the big bucks that does stop with him. But like I say, I've seen school kids pass balls in the street better than our so-called £100,000 a week professionals are doing.
You say that, but I mean, some of the best moves we've had have been fast, short passes where we've actually created chances from.
How long ago was that? Because I've not seen them pass to each other. I don't know how long.
That's the point. We don't do it anymore. And Brad's touched on it. We're scared. I mean, all they do in the pre-match is that passing and shooting. So there's the quick passing where you chase around looking like an idiot and that type of thing. They do the shooting bit. But in training, they must do the same thing. They must do this one-touch passing.
They do.
Yeah. So, and that's when we do that, we have looked bloody good at times, and we've scored some crackers. But we don't do it often enough because you know why? It goes back to the old way. We're so slow coming out. We're so slow from the back. And when Johnny Evans was playing, it was straight. It was sideways. Soyuncu was too scared to go forward in case he blew it. I mean, I think Soyuncu is the only person I've seen Rodgers have a pop at on the sideline when he did something. So what did he do? He turned around and played it back. Thomas, when he was being classed as an England under 20 whatever international, was really going forward well. Now he don't want to do it because he don't want to mess up and lose the ball. They attack and they score. Nobody covers him.
I think the thing that we can say when we are doing that in training, we haven't got 11 better guys than us that are trying to get the ball off them. Quickly before we actually then we'll move on to something though. But last point with Brendan, And Spencer asked this earlier, so I'm going to bring it in now. I've got my thoughts on this. If Rodgers does get the sack, who would each of you have in place of him? So we'll start with Dave, because I think Dave will be, I don't know.
Seriously, I haven't got a clue. I really don't know anybody that's around that I'd want to be manager. Nobody excites me enough. Sean Dyche, I think, might be the one. I mean, I hear what you're saying about he does what he's, the best he can do, but he's not actually experienced having a good side, has he, or good players. And as you know, if a manager's not got the pedigree, players might not play for him.
Yeah. Brad, Big Sam?
No. That
was much tongue in cheek.
Yeah. No, honestly, and people are going to slate me and call me a fool and say it's ridiculous to say it, but Mauricio Pochettino. I would still go for him. Look, he had his burnout at Tottenham, in front, and he's had a bit of a reset. He's been away from it. He's there, and if you look at maybe the way Leicester are trying to go future-wise, if we're going to be spending by the sounds of it, because it's from Fabrizio, look, we're at least spending by the sounds of it 20-odd million on somebody here, potentially, then clearly the money's opened up enough for them to go, well, yeah, you can have that. I mean, he's not going to be wanting the same wages he was on at PSG. He's not going to cost anything to get out of it, I believe. He's not back in management, to my knowledge. Someone might correct me, but why not? He's had his feet up. He's had his rest. He's had his mind to refresh. We know the challenges and what he's capable of doing. I would take him in. I'd take him in if you say to Brendan, all right, you get the January sorted out, and then I'll leave it with someone else's capable, and you can go and take over elsewhere.
Yeah,
you can leave then, can't it?
I do know what you're saying about Poch. I don't think he will come. That's the problem I have with it. I think
that's the biggest issue I had to the case. Yeah.
Well, no, but I would love to have him. Don't get me wrong. I really, really would. But I think you've then also got to ask the question: is if he's that good, how come he hasn't been snapped up?
Well, to be fair, Chris. To be fair, he did well at Southampton. Nobody wins anything at Tottenham anyway, so it's harsh to judge him on that one, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a good point. I always forget he was at Southampton, but he's got his home in London still. The rumours are that he's waiting to see what happens at Tottenham
or Chelsea.
If Conte goes, and he'll go in there. I'm going to agree with Andrew here, and we might see Brad fall off his chair when I say this, but we could do a hell of a lot worse than Mr. Potter. Yeah, I know. Look.
Do you know what's mad though? Actually, I thought about it in the show and you just brought him up, so I'm going to just quick say it, right? Isn't it scary how similar Leicester and Chelsea are at the moment? We couldn't beat Fulham. They can't beat Fulham. We've got a ton of injuries. They've got a ton of injuries. We both hate Fofana. Oh, that's just the fans.
No, for me, and I have to agree with Andrew here. He put it up. It did make me tickle because I was thinking the same. But I just, for me, he was good at Brighton. But I think Chelsea's a step too far for him because, there's some of the players there that he's got, I just think, look at him and think, who are you? We're Champions League players and winners here, and you're sort of a manager that, has won something in Norway or wherever it was. Plus, there's a lot of rumours that Bohe is buying the players, and the players that are coming in are his choice and not Potter's. So, I think, obviously,
I'm sorry, but do you really think that Graham Potter negotiated the loan deal for what was it, 45-minute man before he got sent off, João Felix? There's no way.
That's what I'm saying. They're not all his choices, so he's a little bit pissed off, going like, I'm supposed to be manager.
Isn't that the problem that Chelsea have been having all the time? The board members, whether they've been some dodgy, allegedly Russian owners or American ones. They've not let the managers in charge.
No, I think good God, who was the guy that owned them before?
Roman Abramovich.
Abramovich, that's it. I'd got the and I couldn't get any further with his name. I think he pretty much maybe recommended. I don't think he got that involved, not as much as Bowe has done. I think Graham Potter had to go for that job. I think he would have been stupid not to go for that job because you don't know when it's going to come along again. But I think Leicester are a club very much like Brighton. You know, we're not a Chelsea, we're not a Big Six, we're probably never going to be. And I think he could do a good job for us. And I know I said, and I've hated him last season, etc., and was fed up with all the smoke being blown up his arse. But for me, we either, approach him and go, look, how long do you think you're going to be there? Come to Leicester, you'll have sort of full control sort of thing. Or do we, wait for him to be sacked and then sort of go in for him? Again, Sean Dyche, how many jobs has he been passed over for? And you've got to say, hang on, if he's not good enough for Norwich.
Yeah. I tell you what.
That's rubbish, though, isn't it, Chris? I mean, he's good enough for Norwich.
Yes, but I'm saying he didn't get the job, did he? So they obviously didn't think he was good enough.
Well, that sums up owners, doesn't it? They have no idea what they're talking about. That's the
good
problem.
evening, Luke. Thanks. Yeah, and thank you for coming on last night, Luke. It was a pleasure to wind you up. Obviously, Nottingham Forest have got a chance of getting into Wembley again. I don't think they'll actually win the Carabao Cup if they do get to Wembley because, of course, John Moss has retired. So I cracked it yesterday, but I think it was worth another mention.
That's probably one of your better ones, to be fair.
Now, here's one for you, Brad, because Luke says it here, really does, and I think there's no reason. I'm surprised you didn't pick him out.
Frank Lampard.
I would. There is a lot of things you could probably say that I'd rather do than sit and watch and have Frank Lampard in the dugout. In fact, all you've done, Luke, is tell me where Graham Potter's next job's going to be.
Oh,
you heard it here first.
Good point.
Potter will go to Everton.
He likes blue, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, obviously, clearly it's his colour. But no, I would rather be forced to watch paint dry for 12 hours straight with no sleep than...
You'd have big famine, wouldn't you? Let's be honest with you.
If he becomes our manager now, I'm going to have to sit here and go and just say I'm a Leicester fan and not mention his name. But,
he will become the manager.
But that sums it up, though. That sums the owners up, doesn't it? In most football clubs, not ours, but most. Frank Lampard, manager of a club that wants to be in the top 5 or 6. I mean, he failed at Chelsea. Derby was it Derby got to the final of the playoffs? He's not a serious manager yet.
No, he's not, and I'm not saying. Yeah,
he's manager of Everton, for Christ's sake. How'd you get that?
Yeah. It's like Gerrard at Villa, mate. That's the same about him. He came over here, couldn't do it. It's just, and that's why I think, honestly, you say that Potter was good at Brighton. I'm not saying he wasn't. He was. But what looks more glamorous to build his CV up when he inevitably gets looked upon as a failure as Chelsea? Because that's what will happen to him if he gets sacked by Chelsea and he's not backed. And that is, I could take the Everton job when Lampard gets kicked out and save them from relegation and maybe build them up like I did with Brighton. Or I could probably stay in ship at Leicester but not really do anything too fancy with them. He's going to take the Everton job all day long because that's the sort of manager he is, Graham Potter. We're clearly seeing that.
Do you not think that the Everton job is more of a hot potato than Leicester?
Possibly, but he'll see that if he can get it right like he did with Brighton, that he'll be given the time to sort out the mess of Frank Lampard. He'll go, I've got to get the players' confidence back and then do whatever, and players want to leave because of the state of the club, so I'll rebuild it.
Yeah.
It's just one of them.
I love this from Andrew. I put it up before. I'm going to put it up again. I'd rather have Frank Spencer than Frank Lampard. Of course, Frank Spencer, don't forget, did a very, very good impression of an American pop star because he used to take his hat off and throw it across the floor. Of course, that was Chuck Berry.
Is that a joke?
No, it wasn't. I'm sorry, it wasn't. Look, the last one on. I keep trying to get off him, off Brendan, but people keep asking questions, so of course we will keep talking about him. Terry's put something here. Just the last point here. Steve Linex said we had no passion. Question: is it down to no position competition, no motivation from Rodgers, players wanting away, or a mix of all three? Dave.
I assume he's talking about Newcastle.
No, just about Leicester in general. Know, why are the players performing like they are?
It's got to be the manager. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he stands there. I mean, Brad loves him clapping, but you've got to show that you are really pissed off with them. Players are stupid. We've seen that many times over the years. Players, I mean, look at this bloody Mendy thing. What a joke that is. But I mean, players can't do anything for themselves. They cannot understand what playing football is about. It needs people like us that have played amateur football for fun with the passion. These guys, it's just, let me wipe your ass for you and all that sort of thing. So how do you expect them to go out and really show, unless you're some of the old type player that gets stuck in and sorts it out, that they care? They don't, and that's the problem. Unless the manager threatens them, and how's he going to do that now? They're on £100,000 a week or something ridiculous. More than the manager, probably. How can he threaten them? What's he going to threaten them with? Docking their wages? No. Dropping them? Why should they give a shit? They go away on a Saturday night and spend all their money. So there's no incentive. Unless you're a Vardy in his heyday, then it ain't going to work.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how you do it anymore. But certainly Rodgers can't do it.
Brad, quickly for you, and then we'll move on.
I think naturally the manager takes a big blame in it because his tactics aren't working. His style of play that he wants to see isn't working. I think there's a mistrust in the dressing room. Something's clearly gone on. And the problem is we've got the competition there for places. It's just the players that provide that competition I've either fallen out of favour or just don't want to be here. Some of them you could argue, okay, yeah, they've managed to hide it well and say they've been injured quite a bit, i.e. Dennis Pratt. But where's the competition for Marty? We keep asking because he sat on the bench, apparently going to Atletico Madrid or somewhere else, and that's our issue. He's more than good enough to compete for a spot.
Yeah.
We look at our three midfielders in Samore, Mendy, and Ndidi. We've seen that they're more than capable and good enough to put in performance that doesn't worry us. But something's clearly going on.
He's up for a start because, again,
yeah,
Brendan was praising him after the last game, which probably means we'll never see him again.
Yeah, we probably won't. And you have to look at some of these players like Mendy, like Pratt, like maybe even Perez, despite my opinions of him. But Perez is included on this, where he's been sold the false dream. And just when he's thought, maybe he's thought, well, no, I'm still going to move clubs. Suddenly they find themselves in a run of games. And it's like, oh, well, maybe you are going to stick to you. Well, they signed a 2-year extension. And maybe that's now why we've got players like, not so much Yuri, but maybe Madison going, I don't know, though. Because you make these promises, and I've seen you break these promises. I always say there's no smoke without fire. And I said that a lot about the Soyuncu incident. So that's probably the only one where I think the players probably got himself to blame a bit more than the others. But you look at some others and think, why aren't we playing? Why aren't we doing this? And
there is no competition there because, like you say, it's somebody said, and I wish I remembered who it was, but Brendan doesn't have a small squad. He's got the same size squad as the other 19 teams, but what he's got is a small circle of players that he seems to trust. So apparently, well, a couple of players that we're interested in. Like I say, the aforementioned Nicolas Gonzalez. How long was it ago, Dave, that we sold Mahrez? It's about 4 years ago, and we've never filled that boot. But Nicolas Gonzalez, Copa America winner, only just failed to get into the Argentinian side. Would have been a World Cup winner as well had he done so. He got injured in just I think the day before it all kicked off, and he's a left-footed, right-sided midfielder. Have we found Mahrez Mark II, I wonder?
I have no idea, Chris. I've never seen him play. Sorry, mate.
Right, thank you. Moving on, Brad.
but it's right-sided left footer, though.
I mean, we as Andrew says there, he's a speedy player.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not been getting the starts. I mean, he's fallen out at Fiorentina. He was only on the bench yesterday when they played, and it was Sampdoria that they played. I couldn't remember earlier, but he's fallen out because the coach was saying that he was more interested in playing for Argentina in the World Cup than he was for Fiorentina.
Isn't that a slight worry then? But you think, is that a worry?
I don't know. That's only one side of the argument, I guess, isn't it? But he's played 21 times for Argentina, scored 3 goals. He's played for the Argentinian under-23. This season, 7 appearances and 2 goals. He's got a couple of assists in there as well. And yeah, if he is injury prone, Terry says he's injury prone, he'll fit in very well at Leicester. But is it not time, Dave, that we look at this position and go, right, okay, we will look back at Lookman, I think, and go, that's the one that got away. But how settled do these players feel when we bring them in on loan?
You know what, mate? I don't. I mean, Lookman did some good stuff, but he did a lot of bad stuff. He was Fulham. He fell out with Fulham. He's not been a great success, has he? So I go with all this. Oh, we should have bought Lookman thing, and we can't replace Mahrez. There's no doubt about that. But when Mahrez came to us, he was a mess, and he turned into a quality player. But I don't know. I just get frustrated by all these so-called quality players from abroad we sign, and we won't even play a player who plays that side and can pass a ball or put a ball in the middle better than anybody, and can lay a ball down to Vardy better than anybody, and that's all Brighton. But we won't play him. So why is he going to play somebody that comes in who does a similar job?
Is he right-footed though? I think. Mark,
yeah, he is, but he puts the ball where we need it to be put.
No, he does, and I think the same with Brunt. I mean, okay, some of them were wild, but at least he was putting the ball into the box.
It's more didn't he?
Professional doing.
Yeah, because they're young, they don't have this fear of failure.
No.
The kids, I mean, you'll never win anything with kids, apparently, but
I've heard that before.
Yeah, these guys, very naive, but they're not going to give them a go, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Terry, yes, we have done Terry, and actually he's going to be the next one that we talk about. But Brad, do you think if a player comes in on loan and then doesn't get the game time, like Under, and I think Lookman, if we'd had the money, we would have signed Lookman. We know that. But the likes of Under, who the couple of times we did see him play, he seemed to do quite well. We'll admit that. But if I'm going in on loan to somewhere, I'm thinking, like, how much do they really want me?
It all depends on the player's mentality that you bring in on loan. Because if they come in going, well, if they want me, that's nice. Hopefully they'll buy me and I'll prove that I'm worthy. But if not, I'm going to go back to a club and hopefully I can do enough to get into their first team. Because that's at the end of the day where I am, and that's ultimately what I'd like to do, is make my way into their first team. It's why I signed for the club I'm at. But if they wanted to get rid of me, I've got to impress. If they've got the attitude of, well, at least I'm away from the dressing room, I don't really give a rat's arse, you're going to get a Gordon Bennett sort of loan. You know what I'm on about when I say that, which just seemed to play, didn't seem to really give a rat's arse, or just really was awful. That's the trick of it. It all comes down to the mentality of the player. What's he wanting from it? Is he looking at it like, well, sod you, I'm just going to go out on loan? Because we've had some awful loans before, and we've had some really good ones.
Purchases before, dear Batty.
Yeah. But at least it was a cheap bad purchase. We had a few that were bad and cost us money. Slimani.
Yeah, but then again, was he used to the best of his ability? You know, we weren't getting the crosses.
Well, that's the difference. You could definitely argue with Slimani that had you played for his strengths, he would have been worth it.
Slimani might be all right at one stage, especially when he's playing.
I think if we'd got a Mahrez or an Albrighton.
Well, Mahrez was with him, wasn't he, at the time? And I thought that might work, but
I think it would have done, but they just would never played together because he wasn't a lone striker. It was very much like Iheanacho, get the balls in, and when there was a good cross put into the box, he got his head onto the end of it. You know, he just wasn't particularly good with his feet, but he never got the chance to.
No, how long was Lookman with us? Not a whole season.
Yeah,
was it?
season, just the season.
Well, yeah, he played about 26 games.
Yeah, because it just completely defaulted against Brendan's tradition of, with the greatest respect to him, because he's an absolute legend, but play to Vardy's strengths.
Yeah.
And sometimes that mattered, and he needed Lookman, and sometimes Brendan didn't warrant having it on. Here's a killer idea. You know, all this talk, Chris, and you put it out there, and I'm not besmirching this guy's talent who we're looking at, because I'm like Dave, I just don't know him all that well and what he's capable of. But we ever thought, instead of trying to find a player and then just bash him to the hills because he's not the next Mahrez, how about we do this magical thing called change formation? I mean, you don't need to replace Mahrez because you're not playing that. Who knew you could do such a thing? I know. It's ludicrous to think you could do such a thing, but maybe if we want to keep that thing, maybe use a formation that allows you to play to the style of football that you're wanting. It might actually help.
He's going to play his jingle now, isn't he?
I mean, all I can say, Brad,
behave.
I know. Scandalous thoughts for me to be.
I mean, the other thing, of course, is just by, because he brought Samari in and said, well, he's not playing like I want him to play. I want a box-to-box midfielder. Well, why not go and buy a fucking box-to-box midfielder than buying somebody who isn't and trying to change them into it?
Well, Samari is a box-to-box midfielder, but he can't.
Yeah, he's actually been doing it quite well, I feel, this season as well.
But he can't defend very
well. This season he is, yes, but that was what he was saying last season.
And come on. We all remember Samari's little bum wiggle dance when we scored at Everton. That's just, he's got a legacy here at the club anyway. We all remember the little Samari shuffle that he gave.
And who somebody just reminded us in the chat, who remembers Gazelle?
No, I tried to forget, and that's the thing. Stay away from this.
He knew, wasn't he, really?
Yeah. Gazelle ended up at Fiorentina from us, didn't he? Maybe we should leave that kid alone for deals.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Told you, bro. I love Albrighton. Problem with Albrighton is, like I say, great player, but he can't be playing 90 minutes twice a week like Vardy can't.
No. We wouldn't know.
No. And let's face it. The most fearful we've looked down that side of the field since Mahrez left is when we've had Ricardo, Pereira, and Castagne both fit, and that's been a bloody hard knock to say. That's been probably more than 15 games in the last 4 years. Yeah. It feels like that they've both been fit and available because we have that pace. Like I said, you're right, Chris. Albrighton could put a ball on the toe end of on Vardy when it's needed to, but only if he's crossing it from 10 yards inside our own half, because he can stop and put the ball in. He's like James Milner in that sense. Yeah. We need somebody who can do Castagne, and that's what leaves Castagne out of position. Which is why we don't see him getting forward in a lot of games, because he daren't go too far from him because he realises he hasn't got Ricardo covering it.
And I reckon Vardy's not used to it. He's not waiting for that ball there, is he? He's not had that ball for so long.
No. And I think, when he does play Albrighton, it's almost, it's as a right back, isn't it? Where you've got Castagne there, stick Albrighton who can play at right back, and they can run past each other, but stick Albrighton on that right wing, like you say, because he can still put those balls in. But this is Brendan. Let's not get back onto Brendan again. But apparently, Leicester City have reportedly joined the race Oh, there's a serious vehicle crash on the M1 and it has closed the M1. So if you are travelling, which I doubt you are, hopefully not if you're watching this, but if you are travelling, be careful on the M1. But Leicester City have reportedly joined the race to sign Red Bull Salzburg defender Kami. Oh, here we go. Piotrowski. Why do they do this to me? I'm sure they're going like, oh, we could find that player, but he's called Smith, and Chris will be able to say his name. We've got to go and find somebody else.
Harry Smith.
Yes, he's a Polish international, and he made the £4 million switch from the Austrian side from Red Bull Salzburg side last year after impressing in his homeland. However, and here, well, this is why Brendan's buying him, a muscular injury has kept him sidelined for some time this season. Piotrowski returned to action in October, and despite making just 4 appearances, this campaign has attracted interest from clubs, including Feyenoord and now Leicester. Didn't we get Daka from Red Bull?
Yes, we did. That's where we signed him from.
Yeah. Now he is a defender. He is a centre back. I'd still be happy to have Maguire back, but I do believe he's going to be off to Newcastle. But let's just have a look at this guy. So this is Kami Piotrowski. For God's sake, he is. Let's have a look. How old is he? He's 22. He's Polish, obviously. The centre back. He's right-footed. He has won the Austrian Championship. He has won the Austrian Cup, and he has won the Polish Cup. So he has won a few things. Let's have a look. He's only played 3 times this season. Poland, he's made 3 appearances for the Polish national team, but he has played at all levels from under 15, 19, 20 and 21 on the way to the national team. So he can also play on the right side as well. So he can play right back as well. So again, Brendan's favourite thing of having a couple of players that can, or a player that can play in a couple of positions, I should say. Again, it's a position we need to fill, Dave. And I know you're going to say, well, I don't know anything about him, but on what,
I've been studying him quite a lot, actually, Chris.
No, you haven't.
Hey, we got a Marty. We got a Marty there. What do you need somebody else?
Well, your favourite player. Look, don't you try and kid a young man. I mean, again, this is what you get. This is what you get.
We can't score goals, and we're talking about defenders. Absolute crap. I mean, we need somebody to put the ball in the net. The defenders can look after themselves, I think. We don't need fullbacks. We don't need centre halves. We need somebody that's going to put the ball in the net. We can't do that anymore. Vardy, we know, sadly, we knew it would happen one day. It's like it's a bit like the Queen, actually. We knew that would happen, and we were devastated when it happened. Vardy's gone. I really think that after the last few performances, he's gone. Whether he could be adapted to another role in midfield, I don't know. I thought he could. But we need somebody who's going to score. Daka's lost it. Harvey Barnes, whatever. We ain't got anybody else. Iniacho, when he comes on in the 80th minute, plays in midfield. We ain't got anybody.
I mean, I just don't know why you don't go into politics, Dave, because you are so good at taking a question and answering a question that I've never even asked. But you do move me on to the next topic. But before we do that, we do need defenders, don't we, Brad? We need a left back, because if Thomas gets injured, we're absolutely fucked unless we're going to get Vestergaard coming on with Ryan Bertrand in a wheelchair and wheel him up and down the wing. So we need a left back. Centre back Johnny Evans, like you say, he's unless it's a soft pitch, he isn't going to sort of come out the changing room. And we'll come on to the striking bit at the moment. But those positions are needed, are they not?
Yeah, they are definitely needed. Their areas of strength for the way we play because Soyuncu's clearly never going to play for us again. There's no trust in Vestergaard. Evans, like you said, is more injured. He's catching up with sick days from like Ryan Bertrand, who feels like he's been out since day side for us. So we're in depth needed in that area. Like you said, if Luke Thomas gets over, our only option is our only right back at the moment. We can stand here there, and then you're having to play, like you said, you have to play someone at right back out of position. But it's just it's a position that I hope we strengthen them well, and I'm not going to question our scouting because I don't know someone about this. It's not a well famous name. We've made many an unknown into.
We didn't know Mahrez, we didn't know Kanté, we didn't know Vardy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to sit here and say I know anything about it, but I'm not going to sit here and say just because I don't know anything about it doesn't mean he can't do the job. I'm happy to bring us in. And here's one. I don't know if you want to throw this out, Chris, as a question for Dave as well, but for yourself and maybe those listening in. I saw a report that apparently Trossard wants out from Brighton for whatever reason, considering where they are and what they're doing. Thinking ahead, if it's possible, with the talks of Platt being sold and we know where Yuri's going next year, he's Belgian, isn't he? Leo Trossard is Belgian, I believe. So he fits the bill in terms of what we like to bring in from what nationalities. Who would oppose to us maybe trying to get him in if that's the case that he's not happy with Brighton for whatever reason?
I'll write that down and we will come back to Trossard. But before we do that, I want to just go back to Vardy because Dave brought the topic up. Yes, Vardy's past it now. We knew he was. Daka, see, for me, I think we were just a season too late getting a Daka in. Now, whether it was Daka or another striker, I think had we bought somebody in the season before when Vardy was still on reasonable form and he had that year to settle in, a bit like Soyuncu behind, Maguire, I think we might be seeing another Daka now. We know there's a talent again in there. We've seen it in, the Moscow game and he's got the pace. Not all players, and I'm going to have to mention him again, sorry, Brad, but Fofana, I mean, he was thrown in at the deep end and he swam. My God, he was like throwing him in the channel and he was swam across back home to France. He was absolutely brilliant. But very few players do that from abroad. And I just think Daka should have brought somebody in the season before and give them that season behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think I was just waiting for. Yeah, I think it is one of them. And again, we go back to that question we've been asking about playing favourites. Obviously, Vardy's a bit of a different case for all that he's done in his time here, but you're also not playing to his strengths, and you can see that with his indecision or his lack of. He almost gets deflated when he makes the decision to pass it, not because he's greedy. We know he's one of the most selfless players we know. But our plays and trains with a smile. I think you could accidentally run over his cat and he'd just smile at you and say it's okay. He just seems to be that gracious now, doesn't he? But I think we're also stunting that development because we're not allowing him and backing him to trust himself to run at the defence sometimes, be a little bit greedy, take that shot. Because how many times this season can you look through Daka's chances or where he's picked up the ball in the area where he possibly could have taken the chance himself and look at it and go, well, yeah, he was pretty naff at what he did there. He's making these bad decisions because that's not his natural instinct. He's trying to almost fight his natural instinct, which would be to turn and have that shot. Because of the way they're going about their business and he's instructed to do it, I think that's why we're not also not getting the best out of that. And I agree with you that these players may have been maybe something we should have gone a bit earlier, but to kind of play devil's advocate, hindsight's also a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is. Dave, I mean, do you think, do you agree that we should have got somebody in earlier? Or do you think, it's the same with Iheanacho? We know there's a good striker in there. And all right, he was at Man City and you could play well up front for Man City with the support that they would give you. But
cheers, mate.
So anytime. But Inacho never got a run in the team, so he was never kind of, he never had that period where. Let's be honest with you, Daka hasn't either, because every time he either comes on for the last 20 or he comes on for 17, taken out, then doesn't play the next one because we've got to play Vardy, who scored one Premier League goal all season.
There's 2 or 3 points there, isn't there? Nacho looked terrible when he joined us. I never ever thought he'd score a goal for us. So that was his first problem. Secondly, when he's playing well in a system that suits him, it's dumped. For some reason, I don't know why, but if he's playing 4-4-2, as you say, why change it if it's working? But then suddenly we change it, so that's the other thing. And Daka, how can you go on into a game knowing you might get 70 minutes? No matter what happens. I mean, at least with Brendan, because he doesn't make a decision till about the 75th minute, you get a bit more than normal. But you can't. I mean, when they changed it around, it's like, this has been set before the game. Don't matter how the game's going. On this time, we're going to substitute you. So unlucky, mate. And it's like Daka off, Vardy on, Vardy off, Daka on.
Yeah,
it's so predictably boring.
If you're going to have a player like Vardy that you're going to bring on, have a player you're going to bring on that's going to get the goals, and he just isn't these days. And he's missed a few recently that he would have got.
Shocker, wasn't it, Newcastle?
Yeah. Harvey Barnes. I just don't know what to make with Harvey Barnes because he's our second top goal scorer this season.
Yeah,
Maddison's the first. Barnes is the second. In fact, Barnes has got more goals than the so-called 3 strikers put together.
Which says it all, really, doesn't it? How bad we are.
Terry says how to get a striker: drop Barnes, put Vardy over there, and put Kells in there. Vardy, he's not fast enough to be a winger anymore.
He's smart enough, though, Chris. He's smart enough. He's got the footballing brain, which Barnes hasn't.
That's where he played for England, didn't he, under Roy Hodgson?
Wow.
I know he's not. He's the striker. He's not a left winger for me. And Kells is not a single, a lone striker. What Leonardo Trossard? I did say I'd come back to it, Brad. Brighton star Leonardo Trossard has put Premier League clubs on alert after falling out with Roberto de Zerbia. He is Belgian. The Belgian's agent told Ben Jacobs that his client was humiliated in front of his teammates and that he's not on speaking terms with the manager. Ooh. Furthermore, the statement added that it's important for Brighton to cooperate with a potential transfer in this window. Ooh. And it has put Liverpool and Spurs on alert. So I don't think we'll get a look in, to be honest with you.
Unless
how many more attackers do fucking Liverpool want? They've got 97 of them. What? Liverpool. No, sorry. What is it with Liverpool, right? I'm going to have a little gripe here. What is it with Liverpool and trying to rip out the arse end of every South Coast club? They turned Southampton into Liverpool reserves because they just kept robbing all their players. Now they're already trying to do it again with bloody Brighton. Fucking hell, get your own fucking ideas, Liverpool. Jesus Christ.
Well, let's fairness,
if you compete with Spurs, you've got the edge.
In fairness, it's the Sun.
I've got the answer. I have the answer. We appoint Roberto Martinez as manager, then we get the old Belgium squad in.
He's taking over Portugal, isn't he? He's taking over.
Unless we can't even get Steven Gerrard in because he's gone off to bloody manage Poland, hasn't he?
Nah, good for him. That Cash is delighted.
God,
I don't think we would get him. It is a good point from Ash, and good evening, Ash. I saw your earlier question. Bless him. He came in and asked a question that we were talking about before he came in, and he has answered another one. But we're going to jump onto this one because I would snap your hand off for this, Ash. I really would. He's a Man United fan, as we know. Happily give you Maguire and 50 million for Maddison. Deal. I would take that. I would take that at the moment.
I don't want to lose Maddison, though. I think he's the best thing we've had for a long, long time. Not only in his ability, but his personality. I love him. I love the way he talks. I love his passion. Passion we've been missing since he's not played, you know.
But are we likely to, I mean, you know, at the end of this season, he's got one more year left on his contract. He's seen what Yuri, I want to bugger Leicester City up, Tielemans has done and running his contract down. So we might not get anything for him either.
Not just Yuri, mate. That's Leicester as well. Leicester have done that.
Well, you can only go to them with an offer. You know,
they
didn't make the horse the water. You can't make him drink.
They can't, but they could have sold him. Could have sold him last year.
Nobody came in for him. Oh, we're talking Maddison or
no? I'm talking about Tielemans.
Nobody came in for him.
Arsenal were in for him. Liverpool.
No, they didn't.
No,
never got forward. It was all rumours, though, mate.
No, they didn't actually make an offer. But I know there was obviously he was linked. Arsenal are linked with every one of our players, aren't they?
Yeah, true.
True. Brad, I mean, obviously, no, that's a no for, and I totally agree with you, Dave. You know, I don't want to lose Maddison, but unfortunately, at the moment, we are not that top 5 side challenging for Europe that we were, and so we are probably going to lose players.
Do we know that he wants to go though? I mean, he's a Coventry boy. He played for Norwich, and he came to Leicester. Do we really?
He might not want to go, but if somebody comes in for him.
Leicester would sell him.
Yeah, I think the way things are at the moment, I think you've sorry, Brad.
No, it's all right.
When we operate, and this is what Rob Tanner says, we operate by buying these players in cheaply and selling one player for a large amount of money every year. You know, we did it with Chilwell, we did it with Maguire, we did it with Mahrez. Now, you know, with Maguire, we were able to hold on to and demand a huge fee because he was a gentleman and said, I'll sign an extension so that you get some money because, you know, you've looked after me. Tielemans is being a bit of a, you know, he's not signing and we're going to lose 40-odd million on him. If somebody comes in for Maddison, would you not think Maddison, whatever we say about Man United, and I some of their fans, Ash is okay. Some of the fans are a bit, you know, up themselves, but they are having a good season. They've got Ten Hag in. I didn't think they'd be doing that well this season, to be honest with you, because I thought they're going to have a rebuild, but he's doing something right there. Got rid of Ronaldo, who was, you know, the fly in the ointment, but it's Man United. I've got to be honest with you, I'm a Leicester lad, and if I was playing for Leicester and they come in and they're doubling my wages and a chance to play for England, but, you know, you could argue never will do well, Southgate's in charge. Yeah, I would be tempted. Would you not, Brad?
I want to ask, is it a saint with a sin? Just one question.
Ash. Call him Ash.
Yeah, Ash. Can I ask you, as a Manchester United fan, with what you've just offered up there? Because if I read that right, he's offering us Maguire and 50 million for Maddison.
Yeah.
I just want to know if he's a sucker or has a special kink for pain. Because to rob a club for 80 million for him, we've not stopped giving him stick ever since. And you're willingly saying you would give us a further 50 million and Maguire to get Maddison. I'd take it. I'd take it right now because I think he'd be happy to give it all. He's not going to want to lose his place in the squad. I think he maybe realised that a club like Leicester is level. He needs to get out of Manchester United and re-establish himself as top level defender in terms of he wants to be the leader of that back line. If he's going to have this new centre-back and Wout phase alongside him, with Evans being injured, he's going to say, move aside, Evans, and I'm going to be, you know, the anchor that weighs the ship down like we ask Evans to do when he plays and does well. And for me, and I wouldn't be opposed to that, especially if you're going to give us 50 million on the top. I would say that's essentially 70 million you're giving us for Maddison. If you take him on for value, we know what Maguire is capable of in the right mix. I would say that's easily 70 million's worth of money value you're giving us.
Yeah,
I would take that.
I think that the £80 million player that we sold to Man United has been he's been ground down by Manchester United. You know, he's taken all the brickbats, a bit like Chilwell did. I mean, he was an England left back, first choice, but half the Leicester fans didn't like him. It wasn't just Maguire that was bad for Man United. Their whole back line was absolutely it was like a sieve. There's that many holes in it. And Manchester United have taken an £80 million defender and turned him into this. I mean, the rumours are that Newcastle are going in for him, but so yeah, I mean, I would take it. Just at the moment, it's literally just been confirmed. Wout Weghorst, the Burnley striker who was loaned out to Besiktas because he didn't want to play in the Championship, has just signed a loan deal for £3 million to go to Manchester United.
Who keeps taking the wrong meds at Man U when it comes to a transfer and a striker? Because they got Radamel Falcao 1 year, who was absolutely donkey useless, and they paid a ton of money to have him on loan. They got that, what was it, Igalo, that was a Watford player they randomly brought in. At one point last year, they were ending up looking for Arnautovic, and now they've gone and signed Wout Weghorst, who bailed on Burnley before they were even down and out. Went, see you later, mate, I'm off. I ain't bothering for you. And who forgets or mixes up the meds every so often when it comes to transfer windows?
All you can say is that he's doing all right at the moment, Eric Den Haag. Ash comes back with, would Maguire want to go backwards? You suggested it, mate. I mean, there's a lot
I think he'd find his level.
He's been to United. I think United was his boyhood club. He's captained them. There's a lot of pressure on him for 80 million and being made captain straight away. And there's a lot to be said, is there not, Dave, for being a big fish in a small pond rather than a big fish in the ocean.
Yeah, shed loads. And Maguire didn't have a good season the year we sold him. His first season was brilliant. The second season was pretty poor.
I mean, to be fair, I would ask the question back to him, and that would be, if you're saying, would he want to take the step back, where's the club that's going to offer him the chance to take the step forward? Is he going to sign for Real Madrid? Is he going to sign for Juventus? Is he going to sign for Chelsea? Is he going to sign for Arsenal? Is he going to sign for Man City? Is he going to sign for AC Milan, Inter Milan? All of them, I would say, are answering no, because they either don't need him or they're too good for him as a club, with the greatest respect to Maguire. Especially some of them I know. I prefer him to be a bit more dramatic and obvious with my point, but that's 8 clubs that you probably use in a conversation around Manchester United and say, well, they're not going to want him. So it's less him dropping it down the thing. It's more him going, I've lived out my dream. I gave it all I could. I'm not wanted by this club anymore, or I'm out of favour. I mean, how old is he as well now? 29? 30?
Yeah, it must be, yeah.
Do I want to make sure I'm playing every week for the next 3 years at least? Maybe I should go to a Newcastle whilst they're in this process. Maybe I could go back to Leicester because I left on good terms. The doors might still be open. You don't know how he's thinking as well. I don't think it'd be a step back if he's not good enough to take that step up, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, yeah, you can have all the money in the world. He wants to be playing. As Ash said there, you know, he's back in form, but Ten Hag just hasn't decided, you know, it's not in his plans, which is fair enough. You know, as the new manager that's come in, he picks the team. I just think, like I say, he was just under sort of a lot of pressure. Villa, by the way, have beaten Leeds 2-1. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, that, because it means Leeds don't go above us because they're still on 17 points, the same as ourselves. But the gap to Aston Villa is now 8 points. So if we lose to, all right, Palace are between us, but if we lose to Forest, Dave, we are in big doo-doos, I think.
It's bizarre, isn't it? 4 games, is it, since the internationals? And we're back where we started before we had that good run. Crazy, isn't it? And we're going back to the first 5 or 6 games of the season, where it was appalling.
Is it we haven't beaten the top 12 team for 12 months or something like that?
Because you know why, Chris, because he plays defensive and is scared of the top teams, where in the days we were good, we went for them. We don't go for them anymore. We defend for 80 minutes and then take a chance. People disagreed with me on the Man City game. Man City were there to be had. I remember chatting in the concourse before and with guys saying that they've got a weakened side out there. We can have them today. And we didn't even go for it, and that upsets me big time.
Yeah. Chris Sutton's gone for 2-1 to Forest.
Good old Chris. He's a favourite of mine.
They've got injury problems as well, but they've got sort of, let's be honest with you, more players in their squad than there was Zulus at what was that fight called? What was that film Zulu? What was it?
Oh yeah. It's called Zulu.
Rorke's Drift. Yeah, they've got more players than the Zulus had at Rorke's Drift. Italian writer says Gonzalez would be a good addition to Leicester. I think he would as well. Fryer says here, this is Matty Fryer, ex-Leicester player, of course, Brad. I don't think Rodgers trusts the squad.
No, he's right. We don't trust Rodgers.
Possibly, there's a good chance, There's no reason why that can't be right. I mean, there's obviously something going on there. It's just which is going to get figured out first, which problem's going to get dealt with first, or is there a way to fix it? Well, only time will tell us.
Matthew Fright's used to managers that don't trust people, because I remember him being dropped in our relegation year, and I think we've had this discussion before, when he was our best goal scorer and he couldn't get a game, so we got relegated. I'm sure
he was playing on the right wing or something as well, wasn't he?
Right,
Didn't he always play on the wing?
Do you remember? Does anyone remember Paulo Sousa?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He was the manager that started to drop Matty Fryer, and I still remember to this day Paulo Sousa's last game in charge of Leicester, because it was against Norwich. I remember the score. I can't remember exactly how the scoring went, but I think we were something like 4-1 down or something, or maybe even 4-0. He put Fryer on because he hadn't been playing him. He'd been benching him and not starting him and not playing him at all. And he came on and scored a hat-trick. And then he was so passionate, he obviously kicked a player and got sent off after scoring a hat-trick. Yeah. And then that Sousa was sacked. Yeah.
Ash says that after Chris's comments about Vardy, he will score too. If he does, I'll come on here and have a moan about him every week. He thinks Leicester will win 3-2 in a classic derby. Rogers says it's a perfect game for us tomorrow. Absolutely. I'm not too sure about that. Matty Fryer, friend of the channel, he's done a show with us. I mean, he's done some videos for me. He's so softly spoken, and of course, we wish him all the best because he did have that horrible injury to his head. So
born in my hometown, Nuneaton.
Does he? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he's over in Canada now, because he was for some reason he was Canadian, whether it was sort of family or whatever. But he's running a football school in Canada now, so we do wish him all the best.
Great.
We'll slowly bring it to an end now, but we've got this coming up tomorrow.
Coming up next on Leicester Till I Die TV.
Tomorrow at 2:30, we are going to have the watch-along show against Nottingham Forest. And we've covered the last two games. So I've covered a 4-1 loss and a 4-1 win. Fingers crossed that it will be okay. And at 7 tomorrow, we've got Brad back doing the post-match. If you can stay on at the end, Brad, I just want to have a chat with you about that. That's the post-match show. We've got some predictions here. Brad has gone 4-2 to Leicester. I've gone 1-1. Craig's gone 2-1. Jerry Taggart 1-1. Ian Marshall 1-1. Steve Leinix 1-1. Steve Walsh 1-1. And I have got Ian Wilson's prediction in now. Guess what he's gone for, guys?
1-1.
1-1.
2-2. He's gone for a nil.
Oh, he had to be different, didn't he? He had to ruin it, didn't he?
I reeled you in there, didn't I? I reeled you in. Dave, what do you think it will be?
Oh, I think we'll win 3-0, but I fear we'll lose.
Yeah, quite.
I got the home game right, 4-0. Do you remember?
No, was it 4-1?
No, you don't.
4-1.
It was 4-0.
Yeah, it wasn't 4-1. I didn't want to say how you said it. So, well done, Dave. You grasped him up for me wrong there.
Well, I predicted it right. That's why I know.
In fact, I'm just checking here. It was 4-0. All right, then. Who scored the 4 goals?
Well,
Barnes.
Madison got 2, didn't he?
Madison got a free kick, didn't he? He scored one of them. Did he score 2?
Yeah.
And Daka.
And Daka. Yes,
the two players that Dave said he doesn't like, up front, Barnes and Daka.
Because the ball was played just behind him. He looked like a musical statue, didn't he, when he got his leg wrapped around? Yeah, I remember it now, yeah. Do you remember when David Henderson, like the Forest goalkeeper, once said he wanted to oust De Gea as number 1, and that's why he went on. Shit.
Exactly. I didn't say I didn't like Daka. I said he don't get a chance.
No, I am changing what you said for comic relief.
Yeah.
Or for comic, whatever they say.
That's getting clipped, Dave. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah, scary, isn't it? Eh?
Okay, question for you then, because I know, and I have got the answer to this, by the way, Brad, just to show you how it's done. How many managers have managed both Leicester and Nottingham Forest?
I can only think
Martin O'Neill.
How many are you going to name? If you have that, I'll name 5. Well, I'll name 6. Well, I'll name 7.
Matt Gillis.
Gary Mason.
That's interesting.
That's 3.
Did Dave Bassett also manage both?
Yes.
I would say about 11.
Ooh.
I'm going to go with 11.
Can't think of any more modern ones.
Well, I've got to be honest with you, Brad. You were not a million miles off. It's 9.
Wow.
Matt Gillis, as you said there, Dave, quite rightly. David Cleat.
I forgot
Well, he actually played for Forest, then he managed Leicester. Martin O'Neill.
Yeah.
Dave Bassett, somebody said.
Yeah.
Mickey Adams.
Oh,
Mickey Adams in Forest as well.
Yeah. Steve Beagenhole.
Oh, that's a harsh one. That's a harsh one.
Gary Megson.
Yeah, Lou Megos.
Somebody who played for Leicester then went on to manage Forest was Billy Davis.
He's a terrible person.
And Rob Kelly.
Rob Kelly was an interesting era, wasn't it?
And players who have played for both teams: Gary Parker, Phil Gilchrist, Matty Fryatt, Jack Hobbs, Neil Lennon.
I thought he'd be a good player.
Peter Shilton.
Yeah.
Anthony Knockyart.
Yeah. And there's a guy called Wes Morgan. Wes Morgan?
Les Morgan, indeed. Yeah.
Wes Morgan.
Ben Hamer.
Stan Collymore.
Stanley.
Well, I'll come to him in a second. Johan Benelouan. And Andy Impey. And the reason I was doing all this, which is very confusing, probably got to be the longest build up to a comment I've ever made.
A joke, is it?
You mentioned the Collymore there. He, funnily enough, followed me on Twitter about 10 minutes before we came live on the show. And I followed him back, sent him a cheeky message and said, would you want to come on? And he said he'd love to. So we'll see what comes of that.
I think one of the best games I saw, I took my young daughter at the time to the Sunderland game.
Yes.
His debut with Heskey.
Yeah. And I just knew after that Heskey was going. I just knew, I don't know why I knew it, but it was such a perfect game.
Oh, it was absolutely brilliant.
I would love to read somebody doing like a what if moment. I'd love to know just a different timeline. If we enter Fantasyland here a little bit, I'd love to have seen a timeline where Colin Moore and Heskey played together for free, even if it's just a season, see what they could have done. We were robbed of that partnership under O'Neill.
We were, because it was an awesome night. There's a book about it. Somebody's written a book, haven't they?
Have they?
Yeah, is it Joe?
Harry, you're not thinking of Harry's book, are you?
I don't know.
Have a look behind you. I'm sure it might be in those books behind you. Don't pretend you've read all those books, Dave.
You must be there somewhere.
How many? Question actually about all those books. How many have you still got to finish colouring in?
Oh, about 100. And it's a What If Leicester book. It's a What If Leicester book. If Lineker played for Sheffield,
it's right.
I wonder if there's a chapter in there about that for a what if, because that'd be a very interesting.
And then of course we got old Taterhead come in because Martin went to Celtic, and he dropped Stan Collymore like a 10-ton brick. But then again, we know what his decisions were like.
That was unbelievable. I remember watching Collymore, and I remember thinking, he's asking for the ball. No, you can't take the ball there. You've got 3 defenders around you. You can't take it. And he did.
He was hitting top bins.
Yeah. Actually, brilliant.
I know
Cluffy liked him.
A naughty boy, off field.
They're footballers. They're stupid, but
But I've actually got a signed picture by him of holding the match ball from that particular game.
Oh wow!
Which I got. I didn't
there for the game as well.
Sorry,
was that a game that we was all there from as well? Then did we all attend that game without knowing?
No, I didn't go. I got that late.
Could you imagine if that's the game? That's the game we all just ended up going. So I was only. Didn't go on my own because I was only young.
We just won the League Cup.
Yeah, what year was it? Do you remember?
Yes, and he was suspended. He couldn't play in it because he'd already played in the competition.
And he played at Watford, because I went to the Watford game, and Martin O'Neill dropped all the major players for that game, and Collymore played in it, and I thought, I wish he could play in the final, but he obviously couldn't because he was cup tied or something like that.
Yeah, it was. He'd already played previously in the competition.
I've got to be honest with you. I think you could file Stan Collymore under the one that got away.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
Definitely. He set off a fire extinguisher. So what?
Yeah, he did.
Who hasn't?
Oh! Come on, Dave. Tell us your fire extinguisher story.
Well, it was only the Dorchester.
Oh, that's all right then. It's allowed there, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a long time ago.
You're banned from Facebook, letting off fire extinguishers in the Dorchester. You look at him, guys, and you're thinking like, look at that nice old granddad look there that he's got. There we go. Look, butter wouldn't melt in his mouth,
Granddad.
And here we go. There was another side to him.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
We will have to try and decide if there is a game that we've all been to.
There must be.
But, I think he definitely was one that got away. But then again, Peter Taylor. Let's be honest with you, he ruined the club. We know that.
I remember Walshy saying he systematically dismantled our club. I think he was trying to be manager at the time, but he was right. Peter Taylor was a disgrace.
Yeah. He's definitely, I think, he's up there with Frank McClintock for me. We've had that show, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. We have. And
Lammy Robertson.
Do you know what? I thought, Peter Taylor never could win anything as Leicester manager, and he was flipping hopeless and ruined the club. And the one thing I thought, fucking hell, Peter Taylor's actually going to win something in a Leicester name, and I still lost that argument. He was that bad at management. I couldn't win the case for him.
He did but he did actually take us top, if you remember.
Yeah,
for that whole week, that whole 3 weeks because of an international break. Wasn't it after a 0-0 draw with Sunderland as well? We were top.
It was because of an international break. We were up there for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Man United reserves did us 3-0 at Filbert Street or whatever, Walkers or whatever it was. 3-0 to Man United reserves. They had 5 players on the bench that cost more than our club. Scholes, Beckham, that lot. I mean,
yes.
they didn't even play.
Yeah. I mean,
think
do
Beckham
you
might have done.
do you what am I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say now. Obviously wasn't very interesting because I've forgotten. I'm trying to multitask. I can't multitask, guys. I mean, you remember Frank McClintock, don't you, Dave? I mean, who would you say was the worst?
Year I got married. It was the year I got married, and we moved down to Surrey, and I had all these Chelsea mates, and we were just shit, weren't we? Absolute rubbish. And we had our top scorer, I think, was Roger Davis with 5 goals or something like that.
Oh God, yes.
He's a legend with Derby. He came here, he couldn't even kick. I mean, it's horrendous. George Armstrong came here. Players from the old Arsenal double winning side who couldn't run. It was horrible. I think we finished bottom with less points than almost anybody ever.
And I always say with that one, of course, that is my be careful what you wish for moment.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted what's he called out of the club.
Yeah. I mean, you look at some of these comments that get made on your site, Chris, and we get slagged off for looking back and thinking we should be grateful for what we got now. But God's sake, for the last 5 or 6, 7, 8 years, I am grateful for what we've got. I would have taken the FA Cup in my lifetime. The fact we won the bloody Premier League, I mean, and in Europe almost on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Goodness me. And now we're moaning because we're not going down. Or, well, we hope
we're moaning because we're not going down. Bloody hell, you can't please anybody, can you, these days?
We're moaning because we're not in the top 3 or 4. And it's very difficult for us to relate to the newer supporters. And everybody has to be a new supporter at some stage.
Yeah.
I mean, with me, it was like 1963 or something, but we all have to do it.
Yeah.
And I understand where they're coming from because Leicester's been nothing but success. And now we're paying the price. But look back, now would be fine. We wouldn't even worry about it.
Yeah. Can I just say, if anybody wonders if there's a bit of a funny smell in the place. Sorry, Door's in. Good evening, Door. How are you, sir? Come along. Always pleased to see a Forest fan. Always pleased to see a Forest fan. Just remember, don't bother going to Wembley. John Moss has retired. I'm going to have to show you this because, I mean, you can't talk about Peter Taylor without talking about...
Oh, my God. How did that happen?
What was he? How was he born?
How was he bought?
Bought. Well, he followed Peter Taylor to about 7 or 8 clubs, didn't he?
Yeah.
One of Brad's all-time favourite players, of course.
We had some bad ones, didn't we? We've had some bad ones.
I don't think there was anybody as bad as him. I mean, even Colton. He made Colton Palmer look good. That's how bad he was.
Well, a mate of mine who was a professional footballer, sorry to drop things like that, but he said to me,
Name him.
If Carlton Palmer can play for England, why can't I?
Yeah.
It was that bad. I mean, they were terrible. And I would argue with that. There were 2 worse players. Akinbaye was as bad.
Yeah.
He took his shirt off and beat his chest when he scored from 3 yards after about 20 games. He accused Leicester fans of being racist.
He was Peter Taylor's choice, wasn't he? I think Graham Taylor was manager at the time.
Wolves were holding out for 5.5 million, was it? And
5.5 million, yeah.
5.5 million, and we thought we got something special, and their chairman was laughing his head off when he sold him.
Was that Adi Akinbaye?
Yeah, Leicester just paid 5.5 million for Akinbaye. I can't believe it.
The only thing that was actually good during Akinbaye's time And this is maybe where I wouldn't put in the defence because he quickly wiped that away with the second season. But in the first season he had with Leicester, he was our top goal scorer that season with 11 goals in all competition and 9 goals. What you have to remember about Akinbaye, before the infamous Sunderland game where he did take the shirt off and do that after missing 975 chances in that one game at home to Liverpool, we could have won that game 7-0 if he could shoot that game and not lost it 4-0 or 3-0 like we did. But you have to remember, if we look back at our seasons before him, Heskey, Claridge, Cotty, Marshall, Fenton, in and around, we had 3 out of them always playing up front, and we played a different style. He became what we'd probably say was the original Slimani. He got service, and when he had the confidence and stuffing knocked out of him, I mean, he couldn't have finished if the team turned up 40 minutes late off the bus. It got to the stage. But there was actually a half-decent striker in there.
I think for me, and I think Burnley summed it up when they bought him, is he scored for joy just in the Championship, and as soon as Burnley came up, season later they sold him.
Oh, you actually look at his stats, so he actually wasn't that prolific a goal scorer. I think he only hit double figures twice. And it's funny you should mention this because I'll give you some ammo to use when Dan's on your show. I asked him a question about Burnley. I asked him what former Fox wore a number 10 and played for Burnley, and he didn't know it was Akinbaye, so you can remind him of that.
Yeah, I will remind him.
What about Andy
Gentlemen,
Lockhead? Andy
question.
Lockhead. Oh, he's number 9, Andy Lockhead, wasn't he?
I met Andy Lockhead once. I did not realise 2 doors up from where I lived was his granddaughter.
Oh,
and she went and said, "Oh," because she knew I was a football fan, and obviously, this was Burnley, of course, where they all lived when I lived in Burnley. And she went and got him, and I don't think my wife saw me for like 5 hours. We just sat and talked football. It just went on and on. But I want to leave with this one. We're going to leave on a high and leave on something good. And Ash asked this one to end with one final question. How did you celebrate Leicester's Premier League win? Dave, you go first. How did you celebrate it?
I cried.
Knowing you, it was something illegal.
No,
on Facebook and a fire extinguisher.
I cried. It was my birthday.
Wow.
Chelsea had just equalised. I was sitting on my own because my wife had gone out to orchestra or band or something. And I had a bottle of wine and I just sat there and cried. I just could not believe it. I really couldn't.
Mine was very low key compared to everybody else. I was almost envious seeing the celebrations go out through the day, but I was sat around my mate's house. We was kind of watching it, and I'm a nervous watcher when it comes to games. I'm always pacing and trying to do it. And when the game went on and Chelsea were 2-2, he went, "If you're going to be loud, you need to go outside," because they've got young kids as well. So obviously, and I just remember the full-time whistle went. I heard the roar from the Chelsea crowd, who were obviously very biased on that day towards wanting to see them stop Tottenham and give Leicester the final nail in the coffin. And I just remember just sinking to my knees and just letting it sink in. It was such a surreal moment. I would love to say I was in the pub with the crowd.
Yeah, I would as well, but I wasn't. I was watching the game on TV, and that season, if you ran a Leicester channel, you were like gold dust. Everybody wanted you in such high demand. And I think I've said before, I'd be ringing, Lee Jobber, the drummer. I'd be ringing him up saying, like, for God's sake, can you do Japanese radio on Thursday? And he'd be saying, well, yes, if you can do New Zealand television on Tuesday for me. It was absolute. And I remember the lady from Australia, one of the Australian channels, rang me up and said, if you win it tonight, do you think there'll be celebrations? I went, nah, it'll be too late. If we win it tonight, it'll all happen in the morning. Never heard from her again. But I do remember because I'd literally been on Talk Sport in what was the sports bar, sort of like once a month throughout the season, because obviously Leicester were doing quite well. And it's the one and only time, and I think I got away with it, when I've been pissed on live radio. And I was still, the next morning when I went into work, And, thankfully, our MD was Italian, and of course, I played the old Ranieri card, and I got away with it. So,
Good
gentlemen,
times. Good times.
Thank you so much. If we don't stop now, we'll still be going on at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
And I know, Dave's on a promise, so we need to do it. Dave, thank you so much.
Too late.
Thank you so much as always.
Thanks, Chris. Happy New Year, Brad. Nice to see you again, mate.
And you, mate.
I don't know if you want to give a shout out to your radio station or where people can follow you.
Yeah, well, I don't do the breakfast show anymore, so it's surreyhillsradio.co.uk. You can listen any time. We have a new presenter coming in a couple of months' time to do the breakfast show. Watch this space; it will be exciting.
Oh, I feel like Sarah Cox following on from Terry Wogan. I kind of say you are looking better for those late mornings.
You say them old.
Dave, all the best, mate. Thanks
so
much. And we'll see you next week. Take care, buddy.
Guys. See
you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Brad, where can people find you when you're not on this channel, not having answers for questions? Oops.
You can find me like Chris said, you find me here most time, but you can find me over on my own YouTube channel. It's Top 10 Battles. Two hosts, co-hosts Dan and Anthony. I give them a genre, I give them a topic, they give me a list, and they argue which one of their lists is better and why they think it's all about. We do all sorts of topics, football, movies, and everything. We're also running a football quiz on there as well. So if you want to check that out, it's Top 10 Battles on YouTube. But if you want an easier life and you're on Twitter Universe, follow me at Fulltime Focus, send me a follow, and click the link in the description there, and that'll take you straight to it. So it's at Fulltime Focus. There's no hyphen, it's all one word. And yeah, that's the best place to find me, mate.
Told you, bro, says, Door, hope you stay up because these derbies are what it's all about. Love having a proper derby. And whether they say, well, it's Leicester and it's really Derby and Coventry, bollocks, I don't care, because Derby and Coventry ain't in the Premier League. We are, exactly. And we're the nearest thing you're going to get to a derby. But can I just say that I think Door has gone with the only ever just pops in. Luke is still in. We've not had it for a while. We had it on the show yesterday, and I just think that it's about time. Do you remember the Daily Arsenal?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's kind of had an update. Here we go. The Daily Trophy. How long since Nottingham Forest last won a trophy? 32 years, 259 days, 5 hours, 54 minutes, and 12 seconds, 13 seconds, 14 seconds. So don't go on about living in the past, Luke, because our past is more recent than your past. In fact, last time you won anything, Madonna was number 1. That's how far back we have to go.
God.
Brad,
that is something.
It is. You got to love a bit of banter. It's what it's all about, football. If you missed the banter yesterday on the preview show, 2 Forest fans, 2 Leicester fans, we're having a right go at each other. Play my songs, Dave. Yeah, you could be saying that to me in a couple of months, mate. We will see. Thanks very much, and I will see you tomorrow night for the post-match.
Yes. I say I'm looking forward.
I say tomorrow night. If we get stuffed, it might be sort of, December when we come back on air.
Yeah. Maybe if we lose, we'll talk about it when they're back in the Championship.
Yes, indeed. Stay in the chat, mate. Have a quick one afterwards. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
cheers. The links to both Dave and Brad, by the way, are in the description below on YouTube because they are regular. Saint, well, do you know what? Seeing as you asked, you you want to know when Tottenham Hotspur last won a trophy, well, I can tell you, 14 years, 319 days, 5 hours, 25 minutes and 55 seconds. Do you want me to check Man United for you while you're here? Don't think you would. Look, catch me tomorrow, 2:30 for the watch-along. It's going to be... you might not see me because I might be behind the sofa. It's 2:30 tomorrow. This channel, catch me here. Thanks very much to everybody that's been in the chat. If you're new, please do subscribe, as it says above me there. Like as well. If you are subscribed, like the video, it does help with the algorithms. I will see you tomorrow. Going to try and get a good night's sleep tonight. I'm nervous. I ain't going to lie. Good night.
Coming up next on Leicester Till I Die TV.
That's all, folks.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye and see you next time.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You'd better like them too, or I'll be back.
Leicester Till I Die TV. They think it's